Chapter 243. Both Madogai and Kakashi widened their eyes and looked at the tall and straight body in disbelief. They couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority in their hearts, as if they were worthless like scraps of paper in an instant, extraordinarily small. The golden giant's whole body exuded an indescribable charm, its scarlet eyes were wide open, looking down at the sky, and the mountains were small. Wherever its gaze swept, the focus of its sight was faintly collapsing, especially the sense of oppression around the giant's body, which crushed the 3 souls and 7 spirits of human beings. Even if the giant was the incarnation of God, no one would doubt it. The burly figure seemed to be endowed with life, and it roared towards the sky. Even if the 2 slender katanas on its waist had not been unsheathed, it also revealed the strength of cutting off all things in the world, writing its own invincible legend of fighting against the heavens. All in all, this should not be a technique controlled by humans. However, such an unprecedented ninjutsu was controlled by humans, and the figure in the golden frame on the top of Kensusanu's head was even more despairing. Who else could it be but Dustless? The golden substantialized chakra has stabilized. What kind of monster is this? The giant stared at the tall and straight giant in disbelief. The one-eyed Mangekyo Sharingan locked on the chakra giant's body, and after a careful observation, his expression changed dramatically. The giant in front of him was a monster that was endowed with life. It was the combination of super chakra. Kakashi's eyes were dull, and the words that came to the corner of his mouth stopped. His heart was like the sea, and at this moment, there were no words that could describe the shock in his heart. Especially bathed in the luster of the giant's body, his heart was crushed countless times, and the confidence that he had built up with great difficulty was once again ground to pieces. There's no need to be surprised. This is the Kensusanu that I've deliberately compressed. Otherwise, my physique would have increased by at least 1/3. Seeing the despair on the faces of Kakashi and the others, Dustless muttered to himself indifferently. The ultimate form Kensusanu in front of him was only 50 to 60 meters tall. If he were to release chakra without holding back, he would be 100 meters tall. After all, his body had undergone the elephant rotation technique. Even if the chakra was still huge, it would not be able to withstand unlimited squandering. Also, the strength of Kensusanu was determined by one's eye power. There's no need to worry about Kakashi. My burning youth will not be defeated by this big fool. Konoha's gray wolf will completely bloom, let his most magnificent scene shine throughout the world, forever immortal. Looking at the giant chakra in high spirits, Madogai said with a smile of exultation. The decisiveness in his words and the tone of going all out made people's expressions change slightly. Kai, are you planning to use that? Absolutely not. Kakashi, who was in a daze, immediately recovered and denied with an unquestionable tone. The burning youth, that guy said, was at the cost of his life. He would never allow it. What a powerful technique, but I'm not afraid of you. The chakra on Uzumaki Naruto's body also shone brightly. The dazzling brilliance covered the sky, the golden afterglow sprinkled all over the sky, penetrating the endless space and time. The majestic and infinite chakra overflowed from his body, and the momentum was monstrous, spreading to every corner of the void. The golden chakra that erupted from Uzumaki Naruto's body quickly gathered and formed a huge body. It was also a high-density chakra. Could it be that, Dustless, who was in the ultimate body Kensusanu, was slightly gloomy? His expression seemed a little depressed and terrifying. He stared at the chakra that burst out of Uzumaki Naruto's body, and his thoughts began to become active. Good luck, I didn't expect Kyubi to be able to bury the hatchet with him. But I didn't expect Kyubi, who hates humans so much, to be enlightened. The world is unpredictable. With a faint gentle smile, Dustless sighed and shook his head helplessly. Then he calmly looked at Uzumaki Naruto, who was spewing out chakra. His eyes were full of expectation. After all, there will be a day when he will fight with Uzumaki Naruto in the future. It's a good choice to test his strength now. A woo, the excited sound of a beast coming out of the cage spread, containing the powerful chakra. Like a hurricane, the violent chakra directly flattened the ground. Yes, I should be happy. After being imprisoned for so long, I finally came out to breathe fresh air. It's indeed a happy thing, Kyubi. Seeing Kyubi's chakra raging in the endless sky, venting his joy of breaking out of the cage, Dustless's pupils suddenly narrowed, but it's a pity that I'm going to be beaten to hell as soon as I get out of the cage. Sad, looking at it, Uzumaki Naruto's body was magnified hundreds of times, or it was no longer his body, but Kyubi's body. The only difference is that this is not Kyubi's body, but his body composed of chakra. It's Kyubi's chakra mode. What a pure chakra. Kyubi condensed chakra mode. Dustless secretly nodded. In the combination of Kyubi and Naruto, there are no impurities in the chakra, it's as pure as spotless snow. Compared to Kyubi, who is synonymous with destruction, Kyubi at this moment is like a savior shining in the darkness. This is really an unexpected development. Kakashi and Guy looked at each other, they could see the shock in each other's eyes. I'm afraid no one thought that one day, they would fight side by side with the legendary Bijou supremacy. Ayo, an ear-piercing roar resounded through the clouds. The powerful airwaves were so powerful that they easily turned the clouds in the sky into nothingness. Then, the huge evil sphere quickly gathered. This is the first move, it's really merciless. Cautiously looking at the giant Bijudama in front of him, Dustless also moved his mind, and Kansusanoo also pulled out the golden tachi hanging on his waist. Looking at this, Dustless intends to fight the Bijudama head-on, he has no intention to escape. Of course, he can't avoid it, after all, he has temporarily lost the glinting fruit ability, he can't avoid physical attacks. Chapter 244. Along with the unsheathing of the ultimate form Kansusanoo's katana, the earth was invisibly shrouded in a haze. Every living being's head seemed to be shrouded by a blade. The golden katana flickered with a dazzling brilliance, and the light reflected on the ground faintly seemed to want to directly split the earth into pieces. The power is not bad, I'm afraid it belongs to the extreme Bijudama, it should be at the level of Super S rank. Dustless nodded inwardly. Kyubi was worthy of being called the most powerful and heaven-defying existence among the tailed beasts. He still clearly remembered that Kyubi had once fought against 5-tailed beasts with its Bijudama alone. However, it's only so-so, a frivolous smile appeared on his heavy face, Dustless indifferently closed his eyes. The ultimate form Kansusanoo also raised the katana of light high up. What was cut off wasn't just a blade of grass, but the whole world. Under everyone's horrified gaze, the katana of light in the hands of the ultimate form Kansusanoo directly descended. The simple blade suddenly surged with a huge slash, tyrannically sweeping away all obstacles. Like an unbridled hurricane, it shook the earth. The swaying surface of the earth seemed to have experienced a magnitude 10 earthquake, trembling violently. Gazing afar, the slash thrown out by Kansusanoo's katana covered the sky and covered the earth. The invincible power vividly expressed the meaning of the word destruction. Ka, the ground was brutally torn apart by the tyrannical power, the cracks reaching a depth of several tens of meters extended forward without limit. Everything that came in contact with Kansusanoo's slash was forcibly erased, so much so that there was no trace of its existence. It was as if it had evaporated into thin air. Shio. At the same time, Chakra's transformation into a 9-tailed Bijudama was also completed. The high-speed rotating Bijudama threw out a powerful airwave, destroying the surrounding terrain. The distant mountains were swallowed up and annihilated by the airwave thrown out by the Bijudama. Whoosh, the dark chakra energy ball was mercilessly flung out, tearing apart the surface of the ground along its path. Long and narrow trenches were formed on the ground as it flew straight towards the incoming blade wind. The sky was filled with a mournful buzzing sound. Time froze at this moment. Boom boom boom, the two destructive attacks inevitably came into contact with each other. The void suddenly trembled violently and started to distort. Suddenly, a blazing fireball soared up and instantly ignited the void. The horrifying fire burned up to a height of a few hundred meters in the sky. The ground within a radius of several kilometers collapsed and sank, as if it had been attacked by an enraged god. The entire ground caved in. Damn it! What the hell is going on outside? Are the tailed beasts fighting? Everyone who was sealing Akatsuki opened their eyes. The intense tremor just now made the entire cavern tremble. Even Fei Duan, who was dozing off, almost fell down from the ghetto devil statue. He immediately roared furiously. It seems that they are in trouble. I didn't expect the characters this time to be so extraordinary. Seal the tailed beasts as soon as possible. Tendo Pain, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. Even if the shock in his eyes was well concealed, his astonishment and disbelief could be seen. The scope of this battle had made him feel powerless. The nine-tailed Jinchuriki is really not an ordinary person. Dustless's body opened his eyes, and a heavy and oppressive voice resounded throughout the dark cave. It seemed to be full of magic that had not dissipated. Don't worry about these problems. Hold them back for a while. After sealing the tailed beasts, we will move to another location. Pain did not intend to fall out with them. After capturing Nibi's Jinchuriki, it was not difficult to gather all the members of Akatsuki to capture Kyubi. He deserves to be the supreme overlord of the tailed beasts. Just the yang attribute of chakra is so powerful. If he gathers both attributes, not many people can be his opponent. Dustless frowned and looked at the sinking ground. Kyubi's strength came from his majestic chakra. The reason why Uchiha Madara could tame Kyubi was because his Sharingan could control the tailed beasts. Otherwise, it would take a lot of effort even if he could win against Kyubi in a one-handed fight. Kyubi was also the most powerful tailed beast. If he only used brute force, even if he could beat Madara, it would definitely take him a lot of effort. Boom! The sound of the ground shattering suddenly came from the front. Raising his head, he saw a golden nine-tailed figure whizzing towards him like lightning. Its four powerful limbs were filled with explosive power, and with a single leap, it was able to cover a distance of tens of meters. What a fast speed! Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank. This Kyubi was similar to his Kansusunu, but there was a gap in speed. His perfect maneuverability was much better than Kansusunu. Ow! 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 In less than a few seconds, Kyubi's golden body rushed to Kansusunu's side, and he bit Kansusunu's head with his fangs. It seemed that he wanted to tear Dustless into pieces. Come on, idiot! Dustless's face showed a cold killing intent. At the same time, Kansusunu's third arm behind him bombarded Kyubi's face mercilessly. Whoosh! Uzumaki Naruto's body spewed out a golden chakra hand, nimbly blocking the golden giant fist, trying to prevent Kansusunu from attacking Kyubi. Boom! The ideal was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. The golden chakra hand was easily broken. Good job. Kyubi was not angry but smiled. He reacted quickly and immediately dodged Kansusunu's attack. Although Uzumaki Naruto's attack failed, it bought him enough time. His hands tightly grasped the ultimate form Susanu's arm, and the nine tails behind him gathered a black energy ball, and directly whizzed towards Dustless, who was on top of Susanu's head. Chapter 245. In such a short distance, it's impossible to defend, and Susanu's movement ability is not flexible, so when the small Baijidama was sprayed towards Wuchin, it was already destined that Wuchin could only resist this fatal attack. The weakness of any creature is the head, and Kansusunu is the same, especially Dustless in the golden frame Kansusunu's head, which is particularly fragile. Kyubi also took the opportunity to jump more than 10 meters away, his body condensed into a golden sphere to resist the impact of the Bijidama. This old fox who has lived for thousands of years really became a demon, very cunning. Looking at the roaring black energy sphere, Dustless was unusually calm, his eyes were staring at the Bijidama that was smashing towards him, he sighed helplessly, his eyes were cold. The chakra in Dustless's body surged again. All the pores on his body opened, rich and abundant chakra erupted again, the ultimate body Kansusanu flashed with a dazzling luster. The chakra gushing out of Dustless's body filled Kansusanu. Is it possible that he wants to grow bigger? Kyubi was stunned looking at Kansusanu absorbing Dustless's chakra, his blood-red pupils were filled with horror. This terrifying ultimate body Kansusanu is already 50 or 60 meters high. And now it seems that he wants to grow bigger. Bastard, is this technique limitless? Uzumaki Naruto, who was hiding in Kyubi's mouth, also realized that something was wrong, and suddenly cursed. He could clearly feel that Kansusanu was constantly growing his body. Even Kyubi, a peerless beast who has lived for thousands of years, was sluggish, his face was gloomy and inconceivable. Kansusanu's golden body suddenly flashed with a dazzling luster, the tall body suddenly surged, layer upon layer of chakra went straight into the sky, and under everyone's horrified gaze, it once again surged to a height of 30 or 40 meters. It reached a height of 100 meters. Damn, the consumption is really too much, this temporary body is really not useful. Perceiving the rapid depletion of chakra in his body, Dustless couldn't help but frown. At the same time, he quickly decided to end this boring task. The depletion of chakra means that the elephant rotation jutsu will end here. Looking at the small Bijidama flying towards him, Dustless didn't care, Kansusanu's katana of light also went straight towards the sphere. Boom boom boom. The blazing flames instantly swallowed Kansusanu. The high-density chakra condensed Bijidama directly exploded, Kansusanu's 100-meter tall body was completely destroyed by the flames. Fragile. With a sneer, the huge golden body walked out of the flames and stood under the sunlight as if nothing had happened. As long as the huge body took a light step, the entire ground would sway as if it was dancing, stirring up sand and gravel that was 10 feet high. This guy really can't be measured by common sense, this evil eye fluctuation has surpassed Uchiha Madara's. Judging from the scale of Kansusanu, he has completely become a surpasser, breaking the curse of Uchiha Madara on the Uchiha clan, and becoming the only person who has surpassed him in 100 years. Kyubi's thoughts fell into memories again. He was tamed by Uchiha Madara and was controlled by him to fight the god of Shinobi, Hashirama. Kyubi still can't forget the past. Uchiha Madara was like a curse in Kyubi's heart, and today, it was finally successfully broken. Dustless has surpassed him. I can only take a gamble. Kyubi's scarlet eyes were filled with madness, he said hoarsely. It's impossible to let Dustless put a collar on him, he can only give it a try. I won't let this guy kill my companions. Uzumaki Naruto in the Kyubi's mouth clenched his fists tightly and didn't relax until he was sweating. His tone was also hysterical and crazy. It's bad, it seems that Naruto and Kyubi are not his opponents. Kakashi, who was watching in the distance, suddenly calmed down. Before, it was a 50-50 outcome, but now Dustless's body suddenly rose 30 or 40 meters high. The scale of victory has faintly tilted to Dustless's side. Being 30 to 40 meters taller didn't just mean that he was taller. His body's strength and attack power had increased by a lot. At least I can do something, Kakashi said in a stern tone. After a rest, the side effects of using Kamui have been minimized, and his body is as good as new, and Manjiku's Sharingan can still be used. Staring at the 100-meter-high materialized chakra giant, his eyes focused again, and his eyes were firm. Kakashi, leave it to me, as long as I use that, I can kill that kid in an instant. Locking his eyes on Kakashi's eyes, Guy said, even if you continue to use dojutsu, you may not be able to defeat Dustless. Enough, Guy, no matter what, I still want to try, this time I will use all my strength. Not waiting for Guy to refute his words, Kakashi's pupils stared at Kansusanu's huge body. Such a huge body doesn't need to be precise, it's easy to attack him. Spiderweb-like blood vessels spread throughout the eyeball, and the spacetime around dustless Susanu suddenly distorted. The surrounding void was like a spring in the deep sea, and it began to distort violently, full of irresistible gravity, as if he came to the depths of the universe, and if he is not careful, he will step into a place of eternal damnation. Is it Obito's Kamui again? Damn Kakashi! Kansusanu's body suddenly stopped, and his feet fell on the ground fiercely, and the ground suddenly flew up. His eyes looked at the distorted space around him, and Dustless's hair stood on end. If he is swallowed by Kamui, there is no turning back. Chapter 246. The 100-meter-tall Kansusanu blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The tachi in his hand was sharp and invincible. As long as the cold light swayed gently, the earth shook, and the sun and the moon lost their light. However, in the face of this strange space fluctuation, he was helpless and fell into a passive defense. Looking straight at the void in front of him, the space and time in front of him were completely distorted, and an irresistible gravity swept through his body. Dustless was stunned to find that the distorted space in front of him seemed to be swallowing the whole Kansusanu. It's not good to be swallowed by that, but Kakashi is really desperate. Staring at the violently distorted void in front of him, Dustless was particularly cautious, and his eyes were carefully looking at the different space of Kamui. The other side seemed to be the depths of the vast universe, and once swallowed, there was no turning back. The Sharingan didn't belong to Kakashi, so it was naturally more laborious to use than Obito. Especially releasing Kamui over such a large area naturally consumed a lot of chakra, and now Kakashi was obviously risking his life. An unprecedented swallowing came, and the whole sky was as fragile as paper, and it was broken by a poke. Caw caw caw, the sound of bones breaking suddenly sounded, and an unparalleled swallowing force came from behind. Kansusanu's third arm was directly twisted into pieces by Kamui. The hideous wound was uneven like being bitten by a beast. It's a pity, Kakashi. Dustless and Kansusanu smiled and looked at Kakashi in the distance, whose pupil was bleeding. This was the essential gap. Kakashi's pupil power was limited, and he wasn't a member of the Uchiha clan. It was unrealistic to think that Kamui could swallow the ultimate body of Kansusanu with only one eye. Any technique has its limit, and anything beyond the limit can't be shaken. Although an arm was twisted, it's not a big deal. You still don't have any advantage. Kamui's voice resounded through the sky. The space around Kansusanu was still distorted, but it was far less than before. It could only tear Kansusanu's majestic body, but it couldn't attack directly like before. Obviously, the attack that tore off Kansusanu's arm had consumed all his pupil power. Kakashi was not Obito, and compared to Obito, who had 3 Tomo Sharingan, he was too far behind. Obito not only had the blood of the Uchiha clan, but the most important thing was that Hashirama's cells, which greatly reduced the burden on his body and mind. The eyes that surpass the 3 Tomo Sharingan aren't something that he can control. Mato Gai's expression was heavy, and his voice was hoarse. Kakashi's eyes were bloodshot, and his pupils had turned blood red. There were dark red bloodstains at the corners of his eyes. Just now, when he used his dojutsu to crush Susanu's arm, the blood in his eyes even fell like rain. Ouch! Seeing that Dustless and Kansusanu were still limited by space, Kyubi immediately seized the golden opportunity. His big mouth full of fangs suddenly opened, and a huge Bijidama appeared in the air. The high-density chakra contained in it was even larger than the previous Bijidama. You're really a fox, you really know how to seize the opportunity. Dustless frowned. At this moment, he was still limited by Kamui. Kansusanu's majestic body was almost under the control of Kamui, and he couldn't move nimbly. He was like a giant target that couldn't move. But do you think I can't do anything to you? You can't underestimate me like this. The eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is just one of my many abilities. It's ridiculous to think that the ultimate body Kansusanu is my trump card. Looking at Kyubi's Bijidama, Dustless smiled indifferently. His eyes were focused on the huge Bijidama, as calm as stagnant water. It's really stupid to release Bijidama so carelessly, it's full of flaws. Dustless coldly stared at Kyubi, who was concentrating on condensing Bijidama. Kyubi must be fully concentrated when releasing Bijidama. This is definitely the best opportunity to sneak attack them. Dustless's pupils rapidly twisted, a dark irregular ghost fire flashed in his sight, and at the same time, Kansusanu's right arm suddenly burned with black flame. The black flame was controlled, and the irregular state quickly compressed and condensed into a huge shuriken shape. Kansusanu Amaterasu. Boom! Whiz! Kansusanu took a step forward, stirring up a lot of dust, raised his arm high, and used all his strength to throw out the shuriken formed by Amaterasu. The powerful force directly broke away from the shuriken of Kakashi's Kamui, and went straight toward the Bijidama. The dark shuriken was invincible. It was condensed by the fire of Amaterasu, and anything that came in contact with it was completely annihilated and disappeared with the wind, and now it used Kyubi's shuriken to turn Amaterasu into a shuriken that can cut iron like mud. Its power can be imagined. Puchi! The giant Bijidama was forcibly torn apart like a piece of cloth. It was split into two halves, and immediately burst open like water droplets. It was extremely powerless. It didn't even explode before it was directly swallowed by the Amaterasu. Everything that came in contact with it was vaporized. Even if Kyubi didn't react in time and avoid the scattered Amaterasu, his body may be swallowed by the black flame from hell. So weak. Dustless chuckled, and his wrinkled eyebrows dispersed, revealing an elegant smile, which was particularly refreshing. Even if he only used 30% of his strength, it seems to be more than enough to deal with these people. Boom boom boom. At this time, the ground suddenly cracked, and a tyrannical airwave like a hurricane spread in all directions. Layer after layer of the ground was miserably peeled off, and the ground was blown bare. Dustless's pupils suddenly shrank, and a rare look of horror appeared in his eyes. It's actually blue steam. Chapter 247. The earth shattered like paper, and the solid ground was like being attacked by a meteorite from the universe. It was not worth mentioning, and it disintegrated into debris in an instant. Due to the excessive consumption of chakra and dojitsu, Kakashi's physical strength was exhausted and he released the restriction of Kamui. The space around Wuchen finally restored its tranquility, and the deep-sea vortex that shrouded the void finally failed. The boundless sky was finally as clear as before, and the original peaceful appearance was restored. Kakashi, who fainted on the ground and was half dead, struggled to open his eyes and looked at Guy, who was full of blue steam. He wanted to stand up and fight side by side with this friend of his for many years, but the severe pain all over his body made it difficult for him to do so, and it was extremely difficult for him to speak. This was the side effect of forcibly using Mangekyo. Whether it was the physical or mental blow, it was great, and it was not impossible for it to consume the vitality of humans. Kakashi, you have done everything you can, and the rest is up to me and Naruto. With a gentle smile, Guy gave Kakashi a thumbs up. His tone was full of confidence, and his eyes flashed with bright colors. Blue steam curled around the surface of Guy's clothes, and the solidified gas crushed the air into nothingness. Any matter that came into contact with Guy would be treated roughly. Dustless in Kansusanu perfect form looked gloomy at this scene, and a haze appeared between his eyebrows. Looking at Guy, he faintly felt a trace of threat. Is this the Hashiman Tonku? It's really not simple. Lowering his head, his eyes locked on Guy, who was wrapped in blue steam. Dustless was secretly on guard. Guy's body was emitting blue steam, which meant that this guy had opened the seventh gate, the gate of wonder. Boom! 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 A strong hurricane spread out from Guy's body, and the invisible airwaves were more terrifying than the solidified attack. The damaged earth began to collapse, and the air was blown away, forming a large vacuum area that was suffocating. Whether it is speed, strength, or physical abilities, it seems that there is a leap in progress. Perceiving the power fluctuations in Guy's body, Dustless secretly nodded. The power of the Hashiman Tonku is beyond common sense, and it can't be estimated by ordinary physical strength. Scarlet Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan stared at Guy, and suddenly remembered this guy's record. Recalling the past, Dustless still vaguely remembered that Guy seemed to have only used the Gate of Wonder 3 times, but each time, it was unforgettable. The big move, Hiru no Tiger, was even more terrifying. The first time, it directly killed Kisame. The second time, it instantly killed Uchiha Madara's help Chibi's attack, and the third time, it was used by Madara's staff of the Six Paths. It was not difficult to see how terrifying Guy's Guy was. Suddenly, Mato Guy, who was exposed to the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, suddenly disappeared, and his body disappeared between heaven and earth like a shadow. What a fast speed! His pupils suddenly enlarged, Dustless's huge perception suddenly spread out, and all the wind and grass within a few kilometers were taken into his eyes, not letting go of any subtle things. Bastard, where the hell did this guy go? Dustless, who was highly concentrated, cursed in his heart. His dark eyes were sharp like an eagle's, and his sharp eyes swept towards the silent void in the distance, taking everything in the surroundings into his eyes. Guy completely disappeared as if he escaped into the void, and his aura disappeared out of thin air. I underestimated this beast, worthy of the beast that can penetrate Madara's body in the future. Dustless's face was black, and he exerted the dynamic capture ability of Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan to the limit, but he still couldn't find any trace of Guy. Ao, as if seeing Dustless's uneasiness, Kyubi took the opportunity to attack. He opened his big mouth, and the evil chakra wave was once again ejected, and a high-speed rotating energy ball was suddenly formed, intending to loot the burning house. Looking at the situation, Kyubi wanted to take advantage of Dustless's uneasiness to deal the most fatal blow. Reckless thing, if you can defeat me, I would have already died a long time ago. With a cold smile on his face, Wuchen thought inwardly. The contempt and disdain on his face were obvious. He looked at the 9 tails that had condensed Bijidama again. His face was overflowing with gloomy and cold aura, and his whole body was suffused with oppression. Whoosh! The huge Bijidama whistled and directly oppressed Dustless's Kansusanu, and the violent wind roared in the sky, and the violent airwaves oppressed people's nerve endings. Pretending to be mysterious. With a sneer, Dustless stared at Shio's Bijidama without the slightest fear. At the same time, Kansusanu raised his katana of light high, and casually chopped down. Whoosh! An ear-piercing sound of breaking the air resounded, and the earth was suddenly torn apart. Immediately, a white light was shot out from the light sword, and the dazzling white light almost covered the entire horizon, leaving a long and narrow trace in the endless void. The sky was so small, and the earth was so unbearable. Boom boom boom, the Bijidama was suddenly shuttled back and forth by the golden white light, and the powerful force directly tore it into 2 halves with ease. Something is wrong. Bijidama is not that easy to destroy. Wrinkling his brows, Dustless had a doubtful look in his eyes. Bijidama was not that easy to destroy, especially the most powerful Bijidama among the tailed beasts. Kyubi's Bijidama was extremely powerful. Being able to use his own Bijidama to fight against 5 other tailed beasts without losing explained everything. But now, it was easily torn apart like a bubble. Could it be? The corner of his eyes fiercely twitched, and suddenly, he felt an unprecedented power fluctuation coming from behind him. Turning his head, he saw Mato Guy whistling over. There was also a super large white tiger rushing towards Dustless to tear him apart. Suddenly, a strong fluctuation of chakra was also transmitted from the front. Looking around, he didn't know when, but Kyubi had already gathered an even bigger Bijidama, and madly spat out evil chakra towards the sky. Because of the Bijidama's power, even the sky darkened. This is the power of Kyubi, it dyed all things in the world with its own color. So that's how it is, I was tricked, it was a miscalculation. Using Bijidama to attract my attention, and then attacking me from both sides, what a hilarious and vulgar plan. How can humans and beasts be so close? It's really hard to believe. Dustless silently sighed, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He also put away his 100-meter-tall Kansusunu. Facing such a fierce attack, his expression was calm, and he didn't even try to defend himself. Such a short distance was impossible to dodge, and Kansusunu wasn't good at moving, it would only be passively taking a beating if it stayed, and Dustless didn't think that Kansusunu could resist the joint attack of both sides at the same time. Kyubi, who had opened 7 gates, wasn't an ordinary creature, his fighting strength had increased by dozens of times, and the other side had Kyubi's huge Bijidama. Dustless wasn't sure if Kansusunu could resist. I didn't expect that I would need to use this to deal with you too, it's really ironic, the amount of chakra is not much, if I use this now, I'm afraid it will be consumed even faster. Looking up at the dark sky with Kyubi's chakra, Dustless helplessly shook his head. After all, this is the body after using elephant rotation jutsu, his strength is only 30% of the original body. The same is true for chakra, the series of fights just now also consumed a lot of chakra. It's time to let this group of clowns see my real eye power. With a cold smile on his face, Dustless's right eye began to twist rapidly, and the bloody pupil quickly disappeared. What's surprising is that it didn't turn into a normal human's black eye, but blue eye. The irregular eye is like a snowflake, and the blue eye is crystal clear. Compared to the evil Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, this unknown eye is undoubtedly more normal, and it gives people a particularly peaceful feeling. What kind of eye is that? Mato Guy looked coldly at Dustless's right eye. Although it looks ordinary, it's definitely not difficult to guess that it's definitely some kind of powerful eye. It's precisely because this mysterious eye is stronger than the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that Dustless chose to use it. I'll let you know the horror of the Tenseigan. With endless killing intent surging out of his right eye, Dustless began to quickly form hand seals. The method of forming hand seals is extremely strange, and rarely seen, it's obviously some kind of ancient or unknown jutsu. Dustless's thin body suddenly swept up the green chakra, covering his body tightly like a protective shield. Behind Dustless floated several green prayer beads, which are particularly mysterious. The size is exactly the same as the truth-seeking ball, the only difference is that the truth-seeking ball is black, and these prayer beads are green. Facing such a dilemma, Dustless resolutely broke out all his strength and entered the chakra mode of the Tenseigan. His whole body was wrapped in the green chakra coat. At this moment, Dustless was particularly strange. His body was filled with 2 different temperaments. His left eye was a deep blood red and dark Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which was extremely evil and terrifying, while his right eye was a blue Tenseigan, which was ordinary and simple. There was nothing different about it, giving people a strange feeling. Let me burn you, Hyuga Tiger. Damned human, this old man will tear you to shreds right now. I'll even destroy your bones and leave nothing behind. As the roars of Mato Guy and Kyubi fell, the giant white tiger and the mountain-like Bijidama suddenly rushed towards Dustless. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be frozen, and time stopped here. It's useless, this kind of attack can't cause substantial damage to me. Dustless in the chakra mode of the Tenseigan shook his head, the several green prayer beads behind him suddenly gathered together, the solid green beads suddenly liquefied, with Dustless as the center, forming a perfect 360-degree defense. Chapter 248. Kakashi opened his eyes wide, trying hard to look at the giant white tiger, as well as the super large-scale evil chakra sphere. then looking at the defensive layer of Dustless's defense, the rock in his heart finally relaxed. Such a simple defense can't withstand the simultaneous attack of Kyubi and Guy. It seems that this is the end. A calm smile appeared on Kakashi's face. His tense heart finally relaxed. Kakashi's face flashed with a touch of relief. The pressure that Dustless gave him was too great. If he could take this opportunity to eliminate him, not only would it be the honor of the Fire Country, but it would also be something worth singing and laughing about in the entire world. For Kakashi to have such thoughts, it was human nature, who would be afraid of this kind of godlike enemy, so it's better to eliminate him as soon as possible. However, he was destined to be disappointed in the next scene. That black and inconspicuous barrier looked extraordinary, but in fact, there was something else about it. It was as thin as a piece of paper. Not to mention facing a vicious attack like Baijidama, even a child's gentle touch would shatter it. It was not even worth mentioning. The reality was completely opposite. How is this possible? Taking a deep breath, Kakashi opened his eyes wide. His bloodshot eyes were even more frightening at this moment. His fists were tightly clenched with sweat. He thought that the barrier as thin as a cicada's wing would be torn apart, but the result was the opposite. The situation made Kakashi's eyes wide open. He didn't recover for a while. He stood there sluggishly. His statue-like breathing also stopped. The one that collapsed wasn't the unsightly barrier, but the giant Baijidama with monstrous momentum. Are you kidding me? How can such a ridiculous thing happen? Kakashi's pupils were dilated. They lost their luster. They were gray. He lost the ability to think. His soul and inner body seemed to have been sucked out by the devil from hell. He could only walk down the path of skin and bones, looking at the scene in front of him in amazement. Looking at it, the Baijidama seemed to have encountered the power of its natural enemy. When it came in contact with the barrier covering Dustless's body, it didn't explode, setting off a blazing fire wave. Instead, it began to strangely peel off. As if it was being melted, its volume was constantly being reduced. In just a few breaths of time, it was completely flattened. Impossible. How can there be such a technique in this world? Kakashi's face was gloomy. His brain was spinning at a speed 10 times or even 100 times faster than usual, mobilizing all the information in his mind to analyze Dustless's technique. Kakashi had never heard of such a technique that seemed to specialize in restraining tailed beasts. Tear him apart, day tiger. The giant white creature opened its mouth wide and bit at Dustless, who was inside the barrier. The moment it came into contact with the black defensive barrier, it also began to slowly collapse and peel off. The dark barrier seemed to be the nemesis of all ninjutsu in the world. There's actually such an unheard of technique. Damn it, what has he been doing all these years? Kakashi calmly analyzed, and quickly came to a conclusion. The seemingly ordinary barrier was actually like a murderer that devoured everything. Regardless of whether it had vitality or not, as long as it came into contact with that black and swarthy end, it would gradually collapse and be irreparable. Even a powerful ninjutsu like Baijidama couldn't escape its corrosion. Once a human body comes in contact with it, the result is self-evident. It seems that it's over. It was a false alarm. Removing the black barrier, Dustless smiled slightly. Several green beads appeared behind him again, following Dustless's body, very mysterious, shining with dazzling light. Needless to say, the previous black barrier was also made by these strange beads. What is that thing? It seems to be able to ignore ninjutsu. Anything that touches it will collapse. Uzumaki Naruto, who was hiding in Kyubi's mouth, was horrified. It was the first time he saw such a terrifying technique. No matter what it touches, it will be swallowed by the unsightly beads. Even the dust without life is no exception. That jutsu, and his right eye, bastard, what the hell did this freak do? Kyubi's eyes were filled with monstrous ripples. He roared madly in his heart. He always felt that there was an invisible big hand holding his neck. It was very uncomfortable. It was a deterrent that penetrated deep into his soul. In particular, The green beads behind dustless particularly attracted Kyubi's attention. He felt a supreme power from them that can erase everything in the world. This is the first time I used it. Looking at the green beads behind him, Wuchen murmured softly. His eyes were calm like an ancient well. He was exceptionally quiet, without any emotional fluctuations. As for the annihilation of the Bijadama and Bijadama, Dustless seemed to have forgotten about it. His eyes were indifferently looking at the void in front of him. Time seems to be up. After a long silence, Dustless said, his dull eyes were shining. The Ichibi has been completely sealed inside the Ghetto Mazo. The task given to him by Pain has also been completed. It seems that it's useless to get you now. Anyway, I already have your in attribute chakra. Staring at Kyubi, Dustless secretly said. The seal of the bijou has been completely completed. There is no need to continue at all. When he was considering whether to leave or not, someone took the initiative to attack. There is a road to heaven, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell, but you send yourself to it. Turning his head, revealing half of his cold face, Dustless looked indifferently at the galloping Mato guy, then turned his head and continued to look at the sky in front of him, but his arm gently swung in the direction of Mato guy. The green beads behind him were guided by Dustless, and suddenly turned into a black sphere and whizzed out. If you are hit by the truth-seeking ball, even if you are a rare beast, your body will be fragmented. Looking at the truth-seeking ball flying out, Dustless said lightly. It stands to reason that Dustless doesn't have the power to control the truth-seeking ball. The reason why he can control the truth-seeking ball at will is entirely thanks to the Tensigen, which is the Tensigen chakra mode. Chapter 249. There is no doubt about the terror of the truth-seeking ball. It is known as the strongest ninjutsu that can both destroy and create the world. It has all the properties of the 5 elements and the power of yin and yang. It is a bloody net that surpasses the Kekkei Genkai. However, this jutsu is not without loopholes. First of all, the biggest limitation is its distance. Not only Dustless, but also Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Obito, and Uzumaki Naruto, the range of control is only 70 meters. Whoosh! In the short confrontation just now, Mato Guy had also realized the extraordinariness and terror of this black bead. Therefore, he took the initiative to stay a distance away from the black bead as he cautiously observed the changes of the black bead. He was very alert, not at all like the hot-blooded child he was before. It can be used to attack or defend. How do you break this invincible technique? Kakashi couldn't help but sweat for the future of the shinobi world. He has already seen the horror of this black bead. Not to mention touching it, even if it reaches a certain distance, it will disappear. The two sides were on completely different levels. This was the difference in dimensions, not the difference in strength. At the very least, they were not strong enough. As long as they worked together, they might be able to defeat their opponents. However, the difference in dimensions was different. The difference in strength between them was like heaven and earth. Kakashi was desperate, staring at the thin back. He couldn't help but despair, and his heart was heavy. Boom! The ground beside him suddenly trembled, and immediately a dazzling golden brilliance rushed over, pulling Kakashi back to reality, staring at the tall figure rushing over. It was Kyubi and Uzumaki Naruto. It is precisely because of Dustless's unprecedented high pressure that Kyubi and the extremely annoying human chose to join forces. The enemy of an enemy is a friend, such a simple truth is known to the world. Is it you, Kyubi? Hurry up and take Naruto dash, come here, kid. Without waiting for Kakashi's voice to fall, Kyubi became arrogant and overbearing, and his tone showed that he couldn't be disobeyed. If it was in the past, Kakashi would never get close to Kyubi, the strongest-tailed beast. Kyubi's fierce name is known to the world, and the fear of Kyubi has reached the level of crying children. We have no chance of winning at all. With your strength, it shouldn't be a problem to escape with Naruto. Kakashi walked to Kyuubi's side and couldn't help but persuade him. Kyuubi was the most important thing to Konoha, and he couldn't be lost. Shut up. Kyuubi's eyelids suddenly rolled, revealing a bone-chilling murderous intent. Kyuubi directly swallowed Kakashi into her mouth. She immediately lifted her gaze and stared at Mato Guy, who was entangled with Dustless. She said in a deep voice, "That crazy man has spied on the path to becoming a god. I'm afraid that soon the world will fall into chaos." She stared at the pearl behind Dustless and pulled a long face. "I didn't think that you, the embodiment of calamity, would worry about the lives of mortals." Filling Kyuubi's mouth, looking at Dustless's figure, Kakashi laughed at himself. His tone was filled with endless bitterness and melancholy. It's not that he didn't want to resist Dustless, but that strange ninjutsu couldn't deal with it at all. "Kakashi-sensei, we will definitely defeat that bastard." Uzumaki Naruto stared at Dustless with shining eyes. His whole body was filled with a strong fighting spirit. Compared to Kakashi, who had no fighting spirit, his fighting spirit was much stronger. "But the gap between us and him is too big. We are not in the same dimension, and my chakra has reached the bottom. I don't even have the strength to move." He shook his head helplessly. In the previous fight, he had exhausted countless chakra, and his body had reached the bottom. Not to mention fighting, even walking was very difficult. Looking at Uzumaki Naruto, who was full of fighting spirit, his eyes dimmed. When he was about to persuade Kyuubi to take Uzumaki Naruto away again, his body was suddenly enveloped by a golden light. This chakra. It's Kyuubi's chakra. Bathing in the golden light, Kyuubi was stunned, and looked at Kyuubi puzzledly. This golden light was undoubtedly Kyuubi's chakra. When he was about to ask, the dry chakra in his body surged again, and even reached the level of chakra that was dozens of times higher than his own. The fatigue from the previous battle was also swept away, and his spirit was refreshed. "This old man's chakra is good, but unfortunately, your body is too weak to withstand more chakra." Looking closely, Kakashi was wearing a crimson-tailed beast coat, and his whole body was covered with chakra. The high-density chakra was particularly rich and dazzling, and it decorated the surrounding void. In less than a few blinks of an eye, Kakashi's chakra had completely recovered. What an amazing recovery speed! Perceiving that his body was full of chakra, Kakashi immediately looked at Kyuubi's serious face, and his heart was slightly shocked. No wonder the major ninja villages are so fond of tailed beasts. Aside from their super combat power, just this majestic chakra that can restore anyone is enough to make people scramble for it. The pearl on his back is very troublesome. Squinting his eyes, his blood-red eyes revealed a deep light of wisdom. The fox face looked at Dustless, and Kyuubi's cat face was cautious. "Indeed, although I don't know the specific function of this technique, at present, it can be used to retreat, defend, and attack. It can be called an invincible technique." Kakashi, who had recovered, nodded in agreement. His tone was stronger than before, and his voice was much louder. His pupils had become blood-red due to excessive exhaustion, and they once again returned to their original human appearance. Obviously, the Kyuubi's chakra was very useful. "You are a smart human." Kyuubi looked at Kakashi with a strange look, and at the same time, his tone was filled with endless killing intent. In fact, his technique also has weaknesses. Chapter 250. There is no invincible ninjutsu in the world, no matter how gorgeous and powerful it is, no matter how invincible it is, there is always a loophole. Because things like jutsu are created by ordinary mortals, as something created by human beings with loopholes, how can it be perfect? Kyuubi's blood-red eyes were filled with murderous intent. He was confident and didn't look worried at all. It's not that he's talking nonsense. In the long years of the past, he has seen too many so-called invincible ninjutsu, but there are some loopholes. The ninjutsu used by Dustless at the moment is such. "But we can't even touch that guy, what can we do?" Squeezing his fist, Kakashi asked self-deprecatingly. The enemy is just standing in front of him, and he can't catch him and bring him to justice. Instead, he has to avoid this enemy from time to time. His heart is naturally aggrieved. Even an absolutely rational ninja like Kakashi is sullen. Are you saying that my dojutsu can restrain him? Kakashi's mind suddenly flashed. He is not a fool. He himself is the kind of genius ninja. Without waiting for Kyubi to say it, he already knew what Kyubi was thinking. Yes, your dojutsu is his natural enemy. Kyubi sneered at Dustless, who was fighting with Guy in the distance. He said with a cold voice, with 100% certainty, that the strange green beads can't nullify space ninjutsu at all. Space ninjutsu is also invisible, especially a brilliant spacetime ninjutsu like Kamui. It directly uses the gravitational force to strangle the enemy. It has no shape, it can't nullify it at all. It's not impossible to try. After thinking about it, Kakashi also felt that it is a feasible plan. There is no other reason. Kamui is also impossible to defend, and it is more elusive, irresistible special ninjutsu, especially after receiving Kyubi's gift of chakra. Kakashi's confidence is extremely skyrocketing. They may be able to take down Dustless together. But that guy's right eye seems to be strange. Although it looks very ordinary, the ability to nullify space ninjutsu seems to be the ability of his right eye. Recalling Dustless's irregular blue eyes, Kakashi said with lingering fear. The terror of the truth-seeking jade was not something that could be described with words. I've never seen those eyes before. Hearing this, Kyubi just shook his head. He had never seen Dustless's eyes before. It was neither Sharingan nor Byakugan, nor the legendary Rinnegan. It was a new kind of eyes. But what's certain is that those eyes are definitely not simple, at least stronger than his Sharingan, otherwise he wouldn't be able to use them. Kyubi was very sure about this. No matter what, the blue eyes were definitely stronger than Dustless's Sharingan, because there was no reason not to use the strong eyes and use the blue eyes instead. That beast and I will be in charge of attacking that brat. You take the opportunity to deal a fatal blow to him. Kyubi's lips twitched slightly as he stared at Guy, who was fighting with Dustless. He was also shocked by Guy after he activated the Gate of Wonder. This was because Guy's speed and strength were not inferior to his. In fact, Guy was even suppressing him. I'll try my best. I'll definitely give him a fatal blow. Kakashi's tone suddenly stagnated. Looking at Madokai, who was desperately fighting with Dustless, he murderously said. His companions risked their lives to exchange for a sneak attack. He couldn't let go of the opportunity, even if it was a one-time failure. Hey, hey, hey. How could you forget about me? I'll definitely beat that guy. Uzumaki Naruto saw that Kyubi and Kakashi ignored him, so he had to stand up and prove that he was still alive and well. Naruto doesn't need you to intervene. Kakashi gave Uzumaki Naruto a comforting look, indicating that he didn't need to do anything, and it was not his turn to intervene. After all, this kid wasn't very useful now. Instead, if Niji and the others hit together, it would be beneficial to the battle. Hearing this, Uzumaki Naruto secretly clenched his fists and lowered his head. He was also speechless. He really didn't have the ability to support Kakashi and others now. He just needed to stay quietly in Kyubi's mouth. The other side was also in a fierce stalemate, and both sides were fighting to the death. In the beginning, Uchiha Itachi and Kisame could still fight with Jiraiya and Chiyo Popo of the Sand-Hidden Village, but as time passed, chakra was getting weaker and weaker, and he was about to lose. Whether it was Uchiha Itachi or Kisame, both of them were at a disadvantage. If it was his main body, it would be easy, but now he only had 30% of his main body's strength, and it was quite difficult to fight against veteran powerhouses like Jiraiya and Chiyo Popo. Whether it was Jiraiya or Chiyo Popo, both of them were well-deserved Kage-level powerhouses, and their strength was naturally beyond doubt. About half an hour later, Uchiha Itachi and Kisame were defeated one after another, and the corpses that were killed also turned into the original sacrificial offerings. With chakra exhausted, the so-called sacrificial offerings naturally couldn't escape the end of death. All of them died with fear, as if they were cursed when they were alive. What a vicious technique! What the hell are those crazy guys of the Akatsuki doing? Chiyo Popo looked at the sacrificial offerings that were killed by her, and her heart was cold. She didn't even need to think about it. Gaara, the Ichibi's Jinchuriki, was also doomed. Maybe he was already killed by the Akatsuki. Hurry up and support Kakashi and the others. Dispelling all the irritating thoughts in his mind, Jiraiya said in a deep voice. He didn't want to worry about the success or failure of the mission now, as long as Uzumaki, Naruto and Kakashi were safe. Chiyo Popo nodded and didn't object to Jiraiya's proposal, because as early as after the Chunin exam, the two villages had signed an alliance agreement and became true allies. It can be said that they were wearing the same pants. Chapter 251. In the cold cave, there was a depression, there was no flow of air, no beautiful colors, the only thing that existed was the dark color that could swallow everything. It seems that the opponents of the two of you are not simple, they were defeated, Itachi, Kisame. Pain, who closed his eyes, opened his eyes and looked at the bodies of Uchiha Itachi and Kisame. His Rinnegan surged with ripples, and the circles of black lines under his eyes rippled like water ripples. The strength of Itachi and Kisame is obvious to all. They are known as the power combination, and their strength is self-evident. It's Jiraiya and Chiyo of the sand-hidden village. Looking up, Itachi replied indifferently, his tone full of calmness. She's over 50 years old, but she can unexpectedly fight. Ghost Merman recalled the scene when he fought against Grandma Chiyo. His eyes sparkled with surprise, and he couldn't help but admire her. It was true that time didn't spare anyone, but her amazing puppet-controlling skills seemed to have stopped the erosion of time. Her vivid and exquisite skills had left a deep impression on him. Her perfect technical attainments are probably unparalleled in the world. If I have to find someone who can match her, I'm afraid it's only Sasori. Kisame thought to himself as he glanced at Sasori out of the corner of his eye. After all, Scorpion's ability to control puppets was well known to everyone. The tailed beasts have been stripped, it's time to retreat. Looking at the open eyes of the Geto Mazo, Pain nodded secretly, looked around, and saw all the achievements of the Akatsuki organization. His confidence swelled, and the gathering of tailed beasts was just around the corner. What's the news about Nibi? Staring at Jiraiya expectantly, Pain's tone showed some rare human emotional fluctuations, and he was no longer a walking corpse like before. Perhaps because most of the tailed beasts were in the hands of the Akatsuki, his indifferent tone softened. Hearing this, Jiraiya's face immediately became awkward and unnatural. In fact, since the Akatsuki began to capture tailed beasts, he was responsible for the collection of information about tailed beasts. After a period of time, the news of Nibi's Jinchuriki was not found. Instead, it seemed to have evaporated into thin air, and the world disappeared. I'm sorry, I didn't find second last either. Looking at Pain's eyes, Black Zetsu reported in a hoarse voice, his tone was bitter and helpless. He cursed the people of the Cloud Village for being cunning and hiding the Nibi Jinchuriki in advance. Hearing this, all the members of Akatsuki looked at the helpless Jew in surprise. His simple answer gave him an indescribable headache. Clearly, he had put in a lot of effort to find second last over the years. Thank you for your hard work. He frowned. Although he was not satisfied with Zetsu's explanation, Pain couldn't get angry. He knew that Zetsu had tried his best. The wantonly capture of Bijou has attracted the attention of the major ninja villages. It's understandable that Cloud Village hid their Jinchuriki in advance. But one thing is certain, seeming to think of something, White Zetsu stared at Pain and said with great certainty, although there is no trace of Nibi at present, it is certain that Nibi's Jinchuriki is definitely not on the mainland. Because my clones are spread all over the inland areas of the world. The confident voice spread, and White Setsu's tone was firm. No one doubted this. After all, his clones were spread all over the world. This is also good information. Pain nodded. This is also valuable information. Maybe Nibi's Jinchuriki is hidden on an unknown island, but there are countless islands overseas, and they are scattered all over the world. No one knows how many islands there are, and it will take some time to find them. There's no point in fighting, retreat, Dushless. Suddenly looking at Dushless, Pain said blankly. Itachi and Hashigaki's bodies were temporarily defeated, and only Dushless has not been defeated yet. Dustless nodded when he heard the words, and his body that was fighting with Kakashi and others also changed, revealing the original sacrifice appearance. His death was particularly miserable, and his body seemed to be sucked dry, leaving only skin and bones. Retreat? Are you kidding me? We should take advantage of the victory and annihilate the enemy in one fell swoop. Their lineup is very strong, but our lineup is even stronger. Haiden immediately stood up and stepped in. The lineup of Sand Hidden Village and Konoha Village is very strong, but the members of Akatsuki are very strong. They can definitely crush the other side. How can they easily let go of the opportunity to annihilate the enemy? Of course, Haiden actually wanted to vent his anger. Because it's completely unnecessary. This kind of thing that consumes energy and doesn't get any benefits is not necessary. On the contrary, it may completely expose the entire organization to the enemy. With a cold light in his eyes, Pain said firmly. Even if the matter of Akatsuki has been known to everyone, and there are no secrets worth talking about, this kind of thing that doesn't get any benefits and will only be exposed, he will never do it. Benefits? We can catch the little devil Kyubi and eradicate the future troubles by the way. Haiden immediately shouted. The purpose of Akatsuki is Bijou. Now Uzumaki Naruto is among this group of people, and he can also eradicate many strong people from the two major ninja villages. It's absolutely killing two birds with one stone. Your idea is too naive, Haiden. Staring at Haiden, who argued with reason, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He understood Pain's idea. At present, as the controller of Gedomazo, Uzumaki Nagato naturally understood that the seal of Bijou must start from the Ichibi first, and it must be sealed according to the number of tails. Even if they get Kyubi now, it's useless, they can't seal it. If they want to seal Kyubi, they must seal all the other 8 Bijou. Now that there is no trace of Nibi, even if they catch Kyubi, it's meaningless. It's just one more Bijou, and now the Akatsuki doesn't have any Bijou. The Bijou that was captured before is still there. The arm can't twist the leg, Haiden was still speechless. If anyone's opinion is not valued in Akatsuki, it is undoubtedly Haiden. Chapter 252. As for Wu Chen, he acted as if it had nothing to do with him. His face was expressionless as he looked at the scene in front of him. Of course, his heart was also very surprised because during this period of time, Sasori of the Red Sand would die under the siege of Haruno Sakura and Chiyo Popo because he deliberately let them win. Now it seems that this scene won't happen. When the ninjas of Konoha and the sand came to the cave where the tailed beast was sealed, the Akatsuki had already evacuated, and in the empty environment, only Gaara was left. As for whether Chiyo Grandma will give up her life to save Gaara, no one knows. Time flies, and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. In the Rain Village. It's incredible, that Tanuki boy's charm is so great. Wu-chan smiled and sipped the steaming tea in his hand. His handsome face was full of enjoyment. Beaming with joy, he bent his body comfortably and curled up like a cat. He was extremely satisfied. The tea entered his stomach, and the dry taste was accompanied by a little sweetness, and the aftertaste was endless. Dustless changed the development of things, but he couldn't change the ending. Chiyo of the Sand Village finally chose to sacrifice her life in exchange for Gaara's life. As for the ultimate reason, it was that Uzumaki Naruto's heartfelt cries moved Chiyo Popo. Chiyo Popo also volunteered to burn her life to save Gaara. What the hell is that kid doing? Recovering from his enjoyment, Dustless's face was full of entanglement and speechlessness. In fact, he also knew the reason why Chiyo Grandma resurrected Gaara. It might be because the members of the Akatsuki organization, including her grandson, Sasori, so she sacrificed herself out of guilt. After all, when they captured Gaara, Sasori of the Red Sand was also among them. But even so, Dustless still found it difficult to accept. If crying could save others, no one would die in this world. But such a thing was realized by Uzumaki Naruto. And it was Chiyo Grandma who was willing to sacrifice her life to save Gaara. Maybe there's something different about him. Konan quietly faced the sun, and her expression was very serene. At this moment, the darkness in her heart seemed to be washed away, and it felt very sunny. Maybe Konan wasn't a dark person. I'm very curious about the charm of that kid. Otsutsuki Higuro put her silver hair behind her ears, and her delicate face showed charming dimples, and her crisp laughter was as pleasant as a silver bell, making people forget the fatigue of their mind. Staring at her delicate face, Dustless was also slightly stunned. That Grandma Chiyo is also a person who is dozens of years old. She was actually fooled by a kid and was willing to give up her life to resurrect Gaara. She has lived her life in vain. Wuchen curled his lips and snorted. His tone seemed to be quite disdainful of Chiyo Popo. He even snorted in disdain. However, as long as one listened carefully, one would be able to faintly hear an indescribable bitterness in his tone. It seems to be jealousy. Hearing this, Xiaonan stared at Wuchen in disbelief. Her beautiful eyes seemed to have discovered a prehistoric rare beast and enlarged her line of sight. Is it my illusion, Dustless? Are you envious of that kid? Staring at Dustless, Konan was stunned, including Otsutsuki Higuro, who also heard the sour taste in Dustless's mouth, and her eyes emitted a bright light that seemed to be able to penetrate people's hearts. Jealous? Ridiculous. As if he heard the biggest joke, Dustless raised the corner of his mouth high, revealing a sneer, and casually said, "That kid has no special skills except for his ability to confuse people." I, Dustless, don't envy others, stubborn. Konan immediately sneered at Dustless, and then looked at Otsutsuki Higuro, and her eyes flashed with a sly light, and her eyes narrowed slightly with a fox-like smile. The world is fickle, I didn't expect Konan to be so cheerful. It seems that Higuro is a good teacher and helpful friend. She finally did something useful. Glancing at Konan, Dustless's heart was filled with emotion, and immediately smiled gently. When he was about to leave, Konan's words suddenly attracted Dustless's attention. If Dustless is killed one day, Higuro, what will you do? Will you sacrifice your life to save him? It doesn't seem worth it. Pointing at Dustless, Konan asked with interest, but at the same time, she felt that it was not worth it. Nonsense. There is no one in this world who can kill me. Rudely interrupting Konan, Dustless said proudly. No one in this world can kill him. Even if Dustless is not the opponent of an ancestor like Otsutsuki Kagaya, he is confident that he can escape from her hands. But even so, Dustless's eyes were still shining, looking hopefully at Otsutsuki Higuro, looking forward to her answer. I might. Being stared at by Dustless's shining eyes, Otsutsuki Higuro stuttered, and finally couldn't stand Dustless's gaze and turned her head to give an answer that made Dustless vomit blood. You win. Dustless angrily stared at Otsutsuki Higuro, then shook his head and left. Although he was angry, it could be seen from Dustless's indifferent face that he didn't care much. After being husband and wife for many years, Dustless knows that Otsutsuki Higuro is like this. She has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She is a typical person who refuses to admit defeat. If you want her to admit defeat, even a knife to her neck is useless. If Dustless is in danger one day, she will definitely give up everything. At the same time, on the other side, Orochimaru is also quickly preparing his own plan. He hasn't forgotten the last time he was crushed by Dustless's strength. Orochimaru still remembered how he had to flee in a sorry state later on. Chapter 253. In the depressing cave, there were burning torches everywhere, and there were many snake sculptures, big and small. All of them had ferocious mouths and sharp fangs, making people feel particularly depressed. Especially in this dark cave, it added a little horror for no reason. Uchiha Wu-chen and Akatsuki, don't think that I'll let you off so easily. Injie's pupils were cold and sharp. Orochimaru clenched his fists and revealed his killing intent. Snakes are vicious creatures, and Orochimaru naturally inherited everything from them. The last time he was crushed by Dustless, his heart was always in pain, and he couldn't be reconciled if he didn't get back at him. Of course, Orochimaru didn't think that he was Dustless's opponent. The previous fiasco told him the gap between him and Dustless, but that didn't mean that he would let it go. Kabuto, do Konoha's people know the news? Orochimaru, sitting on the stone seat, looked at the man half kneeling on the ground. His eyes flashed, and his voice was hoarse like a snake, with endless indifference. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but in the dark, Kabuto could hear the hissing sound of the snake. The news has been passed, and Konoha already knows that Nibi is with Orochimaru-sama. Even if he was Orochimaru's right-hand man, Kabuto didn't dare to cross the line, but respectfully half kneeling on the ground, his face full of restraint. Orochimaru is a snake in human skin, ruthless, and unscrupulous in order to achieve his goals. In addition, his temperament is also the same. When he kills, he may not need a reason, because snakes are such animals. When he is hungry, he will instinctively eat the prey. Whether Konoha will believe it or not, I'm not sure. Kabuto's voice was low, and he looked at Orochimaru with a little surprise. He was really afraid that Orochimaru would get angry and kill him. After all, it was fake news, and Nibi's Jinchuriki was not in Orochimaru's hands at all. To put it bluntly, it was just an empty promise, and whether there would be a fat sheep in the mouth, only God knows. However, Kabuto's worry was obviously superfluous, and he also underestimated Orochimaru's strength. His pale face was filled with a confident smile, and Orochimaru wasn't worried about whether Konoha would be fooled. Don't worry about this. Whether they believe it or not, they will send ninjas to check it out. Konoha is such a village. Especially during this sensitive period, they will definitely send people over, even if it's a tiger's den. Orochimaru sneered. He used to be a member of Konoha, and he naturally knew the roots of the village he served in the past. How about Scorpion of the Red Sand? Orochimaru's eyes suddenly moved to Kabuto's head, and he asked coldly with no expression on his face, which directly made Kabuto's hair stand on end. This kind of emotionless Orochimaru is actually the most terrifying. All his actions are based on instinct, no longer according to reason. Perhaps when he judges that Dodo has lost his value, he will not hesitate to kill him or turn him into experimental material. Kabuto was a ninja sent by Sasori of the Red Sand, or simply an undercover agent of Sasori of the Red Sand, but now he has been instigated by Orochimaru. Sasori of the Red Sand has been fooled. He still doesn't know that I have joined Orochimaru-sama, and he should fulfill his promise. Kabuto hurriedly said respectfully. Even if he has joined Orochimaru, and even if he is his most important subordinate, Kabuto still does things carefully. After all, he is a traitor. Maybe when he has no value, he will be killed by Orochimaru. Therefore, everything that Orochimaru orders, Kabuto is extremely serious. Perhaps Orochimaru saw this scene and let him live until now. Orochimaru, an indifferent and cold voice sounded, and a young man with a gloomy face came out of the darkness and looked at Orochimaru as if he was looking at a subordinate. The person who came was Uchiha Sasuke. Perhaps in his eyes, Orochimaru is the object of his use to improve his strength, and one of his stepping stones in the future. This kind of person is not worthy of his attention. You bastard, you'd better be polite to Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto stared at Uchiha Sasuke with a dangerous light in his eyes, full of hostility. Sasuke's weight in front of Orochimaru naturally decreased a lot. Don't forget your duty as a person, and know how to be grateful. Everything you have now is given by Orochimaru-sama, and your strength has improved so fast, it is also given by Orochimaru-sama. Without Orochimaru-sama, you are not even a fart. Kabuto sneered, secretly scolding Uchiha Sasuke for being ungrateful and too arrogant. Uchiha Dustless and Uchiha Itachi were far stronger than him, but they were not as arrogant as him. This kind of attitude made Kabuto instinctively hate him. Are you done? His eyes fell on Kabuto's body, and Uchiha Sasuke asked calmly. Immediately, under the former surprised gaze, Sasuke's body suddenly lost its texture, turned into a streamer, and rushed out, disappearing. When he reappeared, he was already beside Kabuto, with a sharp tachi on his neck. Gulp. Kabuto's expression was sluggish, and his face was full of horror. At the same time, he secretly scolded himself for being stupid and impulsive. Uchiha Sasuke was the kind of person who showed off his ability. He didn't pay attention to the consequences of doing things. Even if he killed himself, it was not impossible. At that moment, he looked at Orochimaru, his mouth was squirming, his eyes were full of fear, with a hint of begging for mercy. What a fast speed! Orochimaru was surprised. He didn't expect Sasuke's strength to improve so fast. It was completely beyond common sense. Even he could only see a blurry afterimage when Sasuke drew his sword. Driven by anger, you have become so crazy. It seems that I have to thank you, Itachi. Orochimaru's heart was triumphant, and his snake eyes flashed with a hidden color. The future Uchiha Sasuke is his reincarnation candidate, and Orochimaru will also take everything from Uchiha Sasuke. Using Sasuke's body to take revenge on Dustless and Itachi, the two men who defeated him in succession, is the most appropriate. Chapter 254. It's no wonder that Orochimaru was so surprised that Sasuke's strength improved so fast. After all, when he was still in Konoha, he was also called a genius. He wasn't so powerful when he was Sasuke's age. Let him go. Kabuto is one of us, and it was an unintentional mistake. Orochimaru also understood Sasuke's habits. He didn't use a commanding tone with a smile on his face, but said to Sasuke in a negotiating tone. Obviously, Orochimaru knew more about Uchiha Sasuke than Kabuto. His mind was much more sophisticated. He knew that this kid was a proud person. Forcing him not only won't make him yield, but will also cause Sasuke to resist fiercely. Casually glancing at Orochimaru, Sasuke put the Kusanagi sword on Kabuto's neck back into the scabbard on his waist. After all, Otogekure was Orochimaru's territory, and he still had to give him some face. His strength is improving so fast. He is worthy of being the descendant of the Uchiha clan. His reputation is well deserved. Orochimaru sighed in his heart. This was from the bottom of his heart. The outstanding figures of Uchiha in the past were like carps crossing the river. There were too many geniuses. Orochimaru didn't have any Kekkai Genkai. He was an ordinary civilian ninja like Jiraiya. He struggled step by step. Compared with the innate advantages of these big families, he naturally couldn't match them. But it's precisely because of their talent that they deserve to be exterminated. Laughing in his heart, Orochimaru sneered. Such a family of geniuses was naturally envious and hateful. Indulging in the fantasy of the past, they deserve to be exterminated. He stared at Uchiha Sasuke. When he was about to speak, Sasuke's indifferent voice came first. I'm not interested in knowing what your plan is. The Akatsuki organization you just mentioned seems to be the organization of those two men. Tell me their details. Sasuke's tone was very firm. He was also very curious about this Akatsuki. A mysterious organization that can make Dustless and Itachi obey at the same time. How can he not know about it? Especially, Orochimaru seems to be a figure of this organization in the past. In addition, he can also spy on Itachi and Dustless. This guy, Kabuto's fist was sweating. He didn't expect Orochimaru to value Sasuke so much. He couldn't help but sigh. He has been Orochimaru's dog for so many years, but he's still not as good as Uchiha Sasuke. Through this period of time, Do also thoroughly recognized his value. He adjusted his attitude and stood silently to the side, quietly listening to the conversation between the two. Orochimaru didn't hide anything and told Sasuke all the secrets of the Akatsuki organization he knew. Anyway, it's not important. Maybe he can pull Sasuke to fight against the Akatsuki organization in the future. After about half an hour, Orochimaru told Sasuke everything he knew about Akatsuki, without any concealment. Collecting tailed beasts. Sasuke frowned. After hearing the purpose of Akatsuki, he couldn't help but think of the tailed beasts in Naruto's body. After 2 years, he also knew a lot of things that he didn't know in the past, but soon his face became cold. He thought that he had cut off the so-called fetters. Naruto's life and death had nothing to do with him. What he cared about most was the trace of Dustless and Itachi. Those two men deserved to die. Remembering the night of the Uchiha's destruction, Sasuke's body was covered with a bloody mist. The cold killing intent was like 1,000 years of ice, freezing everything, and his temperament was cold and isolated from the world. Orochimaru frowned without a trace. He could understand Itachi's hatred. After all, it was Itachi who destroyed the Uchiha, but this has nothing to do with Dustless. But even so, Orochimaru was too lazy to talk nonsense. This kind of person blinded by hatred has lost his rational judgment and is destined to become his meal. You just said that you want to calculate the people of the Akatsuki organization, so count me in. Thinking of Orochimaru's previous plan, Uchiha Sasuke's mind flashed, and his tone was resolute. The unprecedented determination made Orochimaru deeply moved. The so-called plan is to use the attraction of tailed beasts to attract the attention of Akatsuki and Konoha at the same time, and let them gather together in Orochimaru's Odogekure. Konoha and Akatsuki are different. There is no need for weak sparks. When they meet, the people on both sides will fight. Since I can't retaliate against those two men for the time being, I can only retaliate against the organization they belong to first. The cold contained endless killing intent, like the ancient Sanskrit, full of magic that will never fade away, and time can't decay it. Sasuke didn't care whether Orochimaru would agree or not. In the dark space, only Orochimaru and Kabuto were left, and he disappeared out of thin air. Orochimaru-sama, this kid is too reckless. He must not be allowed to participate in this plan. Seeing Uchiha Sasuke leave, Kabuto immediately became active and advised Orochimaru. Such a thorough plan will cause a big mess if he participates in it. People who can't control their emotions and act according to their own ideas are not worth using. It's useless. Even if you don't let him participate in this plan, he will do it alone. Shaking his head, Orochimaru was very sure. It was because he knew Sasuke's character very well that he was too lazy to persuade him. This kind of person is not useful even if he says a few words. Instead of letting him act alone, it's better to let him join this slaughter feast. Yakushi opened his mouth and finally closed it. Odogekure Orochimaru is the dictator. Others can only listen to his opinion and can't change Orochimaru's will. Especially the fact that, as Orochimaru said, even if Sasuke is not allowed to participate in this plan to pit Konoha Ninja Village in Akatsuki, he will act without hesitation. Chapter 255. Kabuto also knows that Uchiha Sasuke is such a person. It's difficult for him to listen to Orochimaru's opinion, let alone order him like this. In this case, as Orochimaru said before, it's better to let him join this slaughter feast, which can also be regarded as adding precious battle power. After 2 years of hard training, Uchiha Sasuke's strength has been tortured and tested. All kinds of crazy training were almost self-harming. Kabuto saw this in his eyes and touched his heart. Although he didn't like Sasuke very much, he really couldn't compare to his crazy pursuit of strength. It is also undeniable that the reason why Sasuke's strength is so fast is inseparable from his training day after day. Driven by hatred, Sasuke is no longer the young boy. Now he is definitely a ferocious beast who kills without blinking, a beast like Orochimaru. Ignorant boy, his ambition is quite big, but it's not proportional to his strength. Recalling Sasuke's arrogant words before, Orochimaru couldn't help but shake his head. He expressed that he was not optimistic about Sasuke's ambition. He is very strong now, but the target of his revenge, Dustless and Itachi, is really stronger. The upcoming mission to ambush the Akatsuki organization can see his true strength. Sasori of the Red Sand and Deidara are not easy to deal with. Not to mention Dustless and Itachi, who are stronger than Sasori and Deidara. I understand Sasuke's revenge on Itachi, but this seems to have nothing to do with Uchiha Dustless. Speaking of Sasuke's previous fierce words, Kabuto was very puzzled. After all, the people who killed Uchiha and Sasuke's parents were all done by Itachi himself. It had nothing to do with Dustless. No one knows that all this originated from Dustless's instigation. It's very simple. Snake Eyes emitted a wise light. Orochimaru's voice was hoarse, like a snake's cry. He looked indifferent and whispered, Dustless didn't personally destroy the Uchiha clan, but he went with Itachi, and there is suspicion of collusion. Sasuke is that kind of person. Itachi has been arrested by him, and Dustless, who is suspected of colluding with Itachi, naturally has to be brought along. With a mocking smile on his face, Orochimaru suddenly shook his head and said, It's a pity that Sasuke is too naive. He doesn't have the same eyes as Dustless and Itachi. Challenging them is just a dead end. He doesn't understand the horror of Manjikyu Sharingan. Orochimaru wasn't optimistic about Uchiha Sasuke. This wasn't nonsense. He challenged both Dustless and Itachi with Mangekyo Sharingan and ended in failure. In particular, Dustless's eye power is above Itachi's. It's impossible for Sasuke to shake Manjikyu Sharingan with a mere 3-tomo Sharingan. Kabuto nodded in agreement and agreed with Orochimaru's statement. Sasuke is indeed the kind of overbearing person. For him, killing people doesn't necessarily need an excuse. For people like Dustless, their existence is the biggest mistake. Although Dustless didn't destroy Uchiha, to some extent, he was also a participant. Itachi killed all the Uchiha clansmen. Only Dustless and Sasuke were alive, which explained everything. What's the situation on Konoha's side, Kabuto? The topic suddenly changed, and Orochimaru asked Kabuto. Akatsuki Sasori and Deidara both returned to the scene. It would be a pity if Konoha's side wasn't strong enough. It seems that Team 7 is still led by the original Kakashi, but because Kakashi was seriously injured when rescuing Gaara, he was temporarily replaced by an Umbun ninja named Yamato. After Sasuke's defection, there was a shortage of personnel in Team 7. Shimura Danzo took this opportunity to insert a root ninja named Sasai. Touching his eyes, there was a light of wisdom in his eyes as he recalled the information he got from Konoha and answered truthfully. Danzo. After all these years, his ambition is still not small. Orochimaru sneered when he heard this. Since the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki appeared in Konoha, he began to pull the Jinchuriki into his root division. Until now, Shimura Danzo still had such an idea. That Kyuubi brat is enough to make those two masters busy. With a gloating smile on his face, Orochimaru smiled fiercely. He didn't have a good impression of the Akatsuki's group. This time, he might use the Kyuubi's hand to kill those two masters. Both sides heard the news, and without exception, they all came to investigate the bijou. Uzumaki Naruto hated the Akatsuki very much. Although Gaara was resurrected, Chiyo's soul was also wandering in the sky. It seems that Deidara and Sasori didn't encounter Nibi, but instead encountered Kyuubi's miserable appearance. Orochimaru showed a happy smile. His life in Akatsuki was the lowest period of his life. It was because he lost to pain that he was forced to join the Akatsuki. This is all thanks to you, Kabuto. Orochimaru's eyes fell on Kabuto, and he rarely praised him. This time, he mainly used Kabuto's identity as a double spy, otherwise, Sasori would never be in the ravine. Now, Kabuto was Orochimaru's loyal subordinate and an undercover agent sent by Sasori, but Sasori didn't know that Kabuto had completely turned to Orochimaru's side many years ago. Orochimaru-sama, you're too kind. Kabuto was flattered. He didn't feel the slightest joy, instead, he was panicking. Orochimaru's current appearance was very trusting of him. Orochimaru's temperament was very changeable. When he fought with Dustless, Orochimaru used Kimimaro to block Dustless's yin-yang release attack. Kabuto couldn't forget that. Kimimaro's loyalty to Orochimaru was well known, but even so, he still used him as a shield. Sometimes, he would even dream that it was him. Chapter 256. Dustless, who was far away in the Rain Village, naturally got the news, and so did Pain, who was anxious to gather all the members of the Akatsuki organization. Uzumaki Nagato seems to like darkness. No matter when and where, he always appears in the depths of the dark cave, which always gives people a feeling of not being able to see the light. There is news about the second last. Pain couldn't help but speak first, with a slightly trembling tone. Although he tried to hide his calmness and keep himself as calm as usual, it could still be seen from his eyes that Pain's heart was not calm, and he was even doubtful and full of doubts. When he was worried about not being able to find the second last, a pie suddenly fell from the sky. Pain didn't doubt that it was fake, especially since the source of the information was the former traitor Orochimaru's subordinates. The snake that spits out disgusting things from its mouth is very cunning, be careful. Black Zetsu said hoarsely, with doubt in his tone. He also expressed his disbelief. He felt that this was a trap set by Orochimaru. He was very wary of Orochimaru, who was as cunning as a fox. What is the truth? We will know when we find out. Seeing that everyone doubted the source of his information, Sasori had to stand up. Kabuto is the secret chest that I arranged around Orochimaru in the early years. If the facts are as he said, then it's good, but if not, in the end, Sasori was murderous, and his eyes were shining with a piercing cold light. The meaning was self-evident. As long as Kabuto dared to deceive him, he would definitely be torn into pieces. It should be the conspiracy of Orochimaru and Kabuto. They want to lead us into a trap. Orochimaru wants to take the Nibi's Jinchuriki from the monsters of the Cloud Village. He still needs 10 years of effort. Squinting his eyes, after thinking for a while, Dustless said thoughtfully. Orochimaru's strength is good, but if he wants to take the tailed beast from the Cloud Village, which is full of strong people, he is too far away. The Cloud Village is not a sheep pen, and Orochimaru is not a wolf. It's true. Itachi nodded in agreement, rarely agreeing with Dustless's statement. Obviously, he also had doubts. Everyone knew that Nibi was the Jinchuriki of the Cloud Hidden Village, and there was no reason for her to be taken away by people like Orochimaru. And even if it was taken away, according to the temper of the cloud-hidden village, they would bring a large group of ninjas to kill Orochimaru in Audiobook. But it doesn't matter. Even without the existence of Second Last, we can take the opportunity to get rid of the traitor Orochimaru, Pain said indifferently with a cold look in his eyes. Those who betray the Akatsuki will definitely not end well. Upon hearing his words, Dustless nodded slightly. He knew that Pain had already made up his mind. Even without the existence of the Second Last, he could still get rid of the traitor, Orochimaru. If the Second Last Jinchuriki really existed, it would naturally be killing two birds with one stone. Do is a spy I send over. He only knows me and doesn't know anyone else. It's useless for anyone else to meet with him. It's most suitable for me to meet with him. Sasori of the Red Sand said. His words revealed his ruthlessness. Those who dared to betray him would definitely not have a good end. This was also where Sasori of the Red Sand was brilliant. He was able to plant his own spies in other people's places. His ability to prepare for a rainy day was not just for show. You and Deidara will go and solve it. If there is a trace of Second Last, catch it immediately. If not, I should have killed Orochimaru myself, but it seems that this task can only be handed over to you, Sasori, and Deidara. Staring at Sasori, Pain continued in a deep voice, Orochimaru is very cunning. Don't let him take advantage of the loophole. Be sure to get rid of him. It should be Orochimaru's trick. He doesn't have the ability to catch the tailed beast, and he doesn't dare to think about the tailed beast. He used to be a member of the Akatsuki. He should understand the consequences of this. After the temporary meeting was over, Dustless and Zetsu were alone in the dark environment. White Zetsu stared at Dustless's back and said with certainty. Let him go, as Pain said, it's not bad to get rid of Orochimaru, the fish that escaped the net. Most of the buildings in the rain village were made of steel, which was exquisite in the hazy night rain. Looking at the village in the drizzle, Dustless's heart was like a still water, unusually calm, and at the same time, he added a sentence in his heart. Just if the two of them can eliminate Orochimaru, in any case, Audiobook in the Land of Sound is also Orochimaru's territory. Although it was good for a short time, it was funny to be killed by Sasori and Deidara, who were exposed under their eyes. From the beginning, Dustless didn't think that Sasori and Deidara were Orochimaru. Sasori and Deidara regarded Orochimaru as a fat sheep, and Orochimaru probably also regarded them as fat sheep. At the same time, Konoha's ninja also acted in a hurry. As the fifth Hokage, Tsunade Senju immediately sent the reformed Team 7 to march towards Orochimaru's territory. Uzumaki Naruto and the newly joined Sasai also didn't deal with each other. He had an inexplicable hatred for the newly joined Sasai. He always felt that Sasuke's position was stolen by this guy. Of course, Sasai also didn't like Uzumaki Naruto. Living in the root department, he witnessed the ugliness of human nature since he was a child. He was used to the darkness of the world. He scoffed at Naruto's so-called fetters and had an attitude of complete disdain. Naruto was a person who valued feelings very much. As a result, it naturally determined the situation between Naruto and Sasai. The new Team 7 leader, Yamato, also had a headache. The environment created a change in people's temperament. Sasai and Naruto were not the kind of people who could casually listen to each other's advice, and naturally, they decided to have conflicts all the way. Even the two had a big fight midway. If it weren't for Haruno Sakura and Yamato intercepting them, both of them would have been beaten black and blue. In fact, on the first day Sasai and Naruto met, they had a fierce intimate contact. Chapter 257. 7 days later, the sky was chilly and the biting cold wind was bone-piercing. It was a little chilly, causing people to involuntarily shrink their bodies. When they looked up, the clear sky suddenly turned gloomy, giving people a feeling of eeriness and terror. It was abnormally oppressive. The whistling cold wind raged through the sky, shaking the earth. Ring, ring, ring. In the cold wind, there was a pleasant and crisp sound of bells. The monotonous sky finally became lively. The sound of bells lingered for a long time, moving forward against the wind. Sasori, Dage, is the land in front of us the land of rice? It is really a place suitable for Orochimaru to live. The strong wind swept past, and the black robe embroidered with red clouds was blown as if it was going to burst. Feeling the bamboo hat on his head, he quickly pressed it down. Deidara said angrily, "Snakes really like to camp in this wet place. This time, we will set fire to his snake nest. The art of instant will light up the entire Odogekure." Looking ahead, there was a green grassland with moist and fertile soil. There is no doubt that snake creatures like this environment. Deidara looked gloomy and murderous. Deidara hated his predecessor Orochimaru very much, especially the cold creatures like snakes, which were the opposite of his elegant art. "Shut up, Deidara. If you underestimate Orochimaru, you will fail miserably." Sasori glanced at Deidara coldly. His tone was indisputable. He used to team up with Orochimaru. He knew Orochimaru's character too well. It was not a trap. Once it was a trap, it was definitely the most deadly type. It was impossible to let go of the prey bitten by a snake. If the opponent was Orochimaru, it was even more impossible to let go. It seems that he is here. Suddenly, a thin figure entered Sasori's perception range. Slowly opening his eyes, he could clearly see the figure in the distance. Sasori of the Red Sand seemed a little angry. He was most annoyed when others asked him to wait for him, or he was waiting for others. "Is that the kid? He doesn't look like a good guy." His line of sight followed Scorpion's gaze, and what he saw was Do with a slight smile. Deladia frowned. Do's smile gave him the feeling of a smiling tiger. He was like a venomous snake hiding in the dark. No one knew when he would bite your neck. Scorpion looked faintly at the sudden appearance of Do, his eyes flashed a strange color, and then walked over calmly. His body was particularly strong under the attack of the cold wind. His expression was light, very strong, fearless, and there was a feeling of loneliness at the top. "Let's see what a small fry like you can do." Seeing Scorpion's back getting farther and farther away, Deadale sneered and followed him. Both of them exuded an indescribable aura. Their thin and slender figures were not worth mentioning. They looked very small under the reflection of the sky. Deadale and Scorpion, who were bathed in the wind and waves, showed signs of being blown away by the wind. They looked very fragile like willow branches. In the face of the strong cold wind, they could only resign themselves to it. Are these two people really from Akatsuki? It seems a bit suspicious. The Odogekure ninja who was secretly ambushing couldn't help but be suspicious. The unbearable appearance of dancing in the wind really made them unable to associate the words, "Peerless Master." These two guys. What a powerful aura. Staring at the two figures coming towards him, Yakushi Kabuto took a deep breath and muttered to himself in horror. The Odogekure ninja in the distance may not feel it, but he could feel the oppression deep in his soul. There was no need for deliberate decoration, just a casual glance, and Kabuto had a sense of shuddering panic. There was an inexplicable strange sense of oppression around his body. It seemed that even the space was distorted. There were thousands of sharp kunai and other hostility hidden in it. As long as Kabuto made a little rash move, he would be dismembered on the spot. What the hell? Shaking his head without a trace, Kabuto's eyes became clear. That was just an illusion, a demon technique, not real. Even if the killing intent is not deliberately released, just their momentum alone makes me feel scared. This feeling has only been felt by Orochimaru-sama before. It's worthy of being the monsters who teamed up with Orochimaru in the past. He quickly converged his mind. After following Orochimaru for so many years, Kabuto was also a person who had experienced great storms. His heart was like still water, and his face was calm. After several years of practice, Kabuto was no longer the rookie he used to be. Sasori-sama. After a few moments, Sasori, who was hiding in the puppet, finally came to Kabuto. Kabuto quickly half-knelt on the ground and didn't even dare to breathe. Kabuto looked cautious, and he didn't even dare to look up at Sasori. He quietly half-knelt on the ground, waiting for the latter's question. The whereabouts of Jinchuriki, and Orochimaru's current situation. Sasori spoke quickly and went straight to the topic. He looked down at Kabuto half-knelt on the ground. His tone was extremely cold. His hoarse voice was like steel grinding, making people shudder. After that, Sasori's violent murderous aura enveloped Kabuto's body. The boundless murderous aura seemed like a nightmare, filling Kabuto's mind and disturbing his spiritual thinking. Even Kabuto's carefully prepared trap was twisted by this sudden murderous aura and disappeared. Looking up at Sasori's cold pupils, his heart couldn't help but sink. He suddenly remembered the horror of Sasori, and the carefully crafted lie also disappeared. He looked at Sasori with fear. It was an instinctive fear, and any person would be afraid of death. This is natural. After about a few breaths of time, Kabuto's breathing was strangely stable, and his tone was as calm as a pool of stagnant water, without any emotional fluctuations. This kid can hold his own mind. His acting skills are surprisingly high. Dustless, who was secretly watching in the distance, nodded slightly, and there was a little light in his eyes. He saw the instantaneous change in Kabuto's mood. Orochimaru is really a talent for training subordinates. Chapter 258. Touching his chin with his fingers, Dustless really admired Orochimaru's means of training his apprentices and subordinates. Before, there was Kimimaro and Red Lotus, and now this Kabuto doesn't seem to be an ordinary thing. Although that snake is annoying, he has some ability to train his subordinates. This is barely his biggest advantage. White Zetsu nodded, thinking of Orochimaru's disgusting appearance when he used his jutsu, but in all fairness, his means of training his subordinates are extremely brilliant. Those who are willing to die for Orochimaru are as many as carps crossing the river. Even Red Lotus, who was subdued by Dustless 2 years ago, is one of Orochimaru's best friends. If they didn't see the nature of Orochimaru, I'm afraid they would still follow him to the point of no return. That Kabuto is not an ordinary thing. He can still remain calm in the face of Sasori's murderous aura. He is quite capable. White Zoo's gaze fell on the calm pocket, and his tone was a little surprised. Scorpion Kill was not a small number of people, and they were all outstanding top powerhouses. It went without saying how much killing intent was contained in their bodies. Even so, Medicine Master Pocket was able to maintain a calm expression, which was beyond his expectations. Not just extraordinary, that kid is a winner in life. Even Orochimaru is not as good as him. Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but sigh. Orochimaru planned for his whole life, and Kabuto finally inherited everything of Orochimaru, and the ninjutsu that Orochimaru collected for many years fell into Kabuto's hands. In addition, Kabuto also learned the senjutsu that Orochimaru was pursuing, and his strength was far beyond Orochimaru. During the Fourth Shinobi World War, he controlled the Edo Tensei army. It can be said that even the strongest of the Edo Tensei army included Uchiha Madara. How can a little kid have the potential to surpass Orochimaru? White Zetsu looked at Dustless with surprise. He didn't expect Dustless to have such a high evaluation of Kabuto. His current strength was just average, but Dustless valued him so much. Even Black Zetsu, who was thoughtful, looked at Kabuto. At this moment, Kabuto was surrounded by Scorpion's murderous aura. Although he appeared to be extremely calm and tried his best to remain calm, his face was pale and frightened. Anyone could see his fear. Seeing this, Black Setsu and White Setsu became suspicious. This kid didn't seem to have the potential to be a peerless hero, especially when he showed fear on his face. Black Setsu immediately labeled him as a coward. There are two sides to everything. You can't see through his true nature just by looking at one side. Dustless shook his head. He was too lazy to explain. After all, this was his unique ability of foresight. He couldn't just tell Black Setsu and White Setsu that he was a transmigrator. His sight continued to fall on Sasori. Dustless watched this scene with interest. Nibi's Jinchuriki is indeed in Orochimaru's hands, secretly controlled by him in the southeast valley. Holding his breath, Kabuto took a deep breath and then said seriously to Sasori, Lord Sasori also knows that Orochimaru is extremely cunning. He set up an extremely powerful seal in the valley where Nibi is imprisoned, the Four Purple Flame Formation. Recalling the lines he had prepared in advance, Dubon vowed solemnly. Look at my eyes, Kabuto. The strong and powerful mechanical arm suddenly grabbed Kabuto's arm, and Sasori's murderous aura became more intense as he stared at Kabuto's fearful eyes. What does this guy want to do? Feeling that his body was suddenly floating in the air, Kabuto's body was cold and even desperate, but he still maintained a poker face from beginning to end, and his eyes were staring at Sasori's pupils that were full of murderous intent. The pupils that came into view were particularly terrifying. The magical eyes seemed to be able to see through everything and look straight at Kabuto's heart. It doesn't seem to be lying. Strange, could it be that Orochimaru really caught Nibi's Jinchuriki? Frowning and putting down Kabuto's arm in the air, Sasori thought secretly. Kabuto's eyes did not avoid him and looked at him fearlessly. His pupils did not shrink, and he did not seem to be lying. Brother Sasori, this kid doesn't seem to be deceiving us. Deidara ran to Sasori and whispered in his ear. His gaze remained on Kabuto's body. This guy's expression was normal, but he was simply afraid of Sasori and did not look like he was lying at all. It's worth a try and solve the traitor Orochimaru by the way. Thinking of Orochimaru's hateful face, Deidara said coldly and bluntly. Catching the tailed beast was only one of the tasks, and the second task was to solve the disgusting traitor Orochimaru. Sasori nodded, and the corner of his eyes also retracted from Kabuto's body. He did not believe that this kid was so bold. If he dared to deceive him, the end would definitely not be as simple as death. Being killed without any pain was the best ending. Lead the way. Staring at Baguio who was lying on the ground, Scorpion's tone was indifferent. His tone was not to be disobeyed. His tone was quite similar to Pain's, as if carved from the same mold, full of oppressive majesty. Kabuto hurriedly stood up, bowed 90 degrees towards Sasori and Deidara, and made a gesture of invitation. This attitude is good. Deidara nodded. Seeing Kabuto so respectful, he was satisfied at the moment. No matter what the ultimate goal is, this guy's attitude is always correct. Sasori was silent, completely ignoring Deidara behind him, and walked straight over. Raising his eyes, he could clearly see the huge valley ahead. After seeing Sasori, Deidara, and Kabuto leave one after another, Otogekure ninja who ambushed in advance also left one after another. The cold wind continued to howl, roaring unscrupulously in the sky, emitting an endless pressure. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and something seemed to be bursting out from the clouds, constantly expanding. The entire void was filled with an indescribable desolation. Kiki, only 2 people came. That group of people is really bold and fat. In the dark cave, Orochimaru was so angry that he laughed gloomily. Looking at the backs of the people who had left before, his face was as terrifying as a ghost. With his dead skin and appearance, it was very scary. Having said that, Orochimaru was more angry. People are arrogant, and Orochimaru is no exception. He used to be one of the Sannin. His strength is beyond doubt. He is definitely a Kage-level powerhouse. If it weren't for the sudden emergence of Minato, he would probably be the fourth Hokage. Although the plan couldn't keep up with the changes, and the final Hokage was taken away by Minato, it also confirmed Orochimaru's strength. Damn Akatsuki organization, today I will let you know what will happen if you underestimate me, Lankuin Orochimaru. Those two art masters will die today. With a creepy smile on his mouth, Orochimaru said fiercely with a fierce tone. He spent countless efforts to construct the perfect plan, and two people came. This was a slap in his face. Especially in Orochimaru's own territory, he completely occupied the absolute advantage of time, place, and people. But this is also good. If Sasori and Deidara die, Pain should have a headache, licking his dry lips, revealing his stinky purple tongue. Orochimaru's snake pupils emitted an incomparably dangerous light, turning into a beast that was about to devour its prey. Orochimaru said in a somewhat hysterical and hoarse voice. Orochimaru wanted to let Akatsuki understand what kind of painful price he would have to pay for underestimating him. As for whether Akatsuki will retaliate, Orochimaru doesn't care. Anyway, his Otogekure is only a temporary base. He can spend a little time to build another one, or even a larger one. It seems that those two guys have come. A black figure quickly came over, and an indifferent voice sounded. Looking up, it was Sasuke with a cold face, with a straight tachi on his waist. At first glance, it was not an ordinary thing. It's rare to see you like this. When Sasuke appeared, the look on Orochimaru's face was completely restrained, but Sasuke, with excellent dynamic vision, still caught the ferocious look that hasn't dissipated yet. Snakes are calm creatures. If they go crazy, they will naturally go all out. Orochimaru smiled indifferently and said calmly. Perhaps Sasuke hasn't seen Orochimaru's desperate fight, but Dustless has seen the madness of this snake uncle in order to recapture the coffins of several Hokage. Any creature, when faced with a threat, will show the instinctive bloodthirst in its body, let alone the cruel Orochimaru. But we seem to be underestimated. Sasuke-kun, only two people came. I thought that the idiot zombie duo would also come, and we will take the opportunity to clean them up. This is equivalent to breaking Akatsuki's left and right arms. Thinking of this, Orochimaru's mind immediately burst into flames, and the feeling of being underestimated became stronger and stronger. He clenched his fists, and his tone was cold as if it could freeze time and space. Well, let's let the group of arrogant monsters of the Akatsuki organization see the big gift I prepared for them. In an instant, Orochimaru strangely calmed down, and his tone became even more indifferent and profound. With a smile on his face, he gave people a feeling of a villain intoxicated by success. The reason why he could be so crazy was because the pressure of Akatsuki was too great, so much so that Orochimaru had no choice but to find another way, and use special means to deal with those monsters with strength similar to tailed beasts. In fact, since Orochimaru joined Akatsuki, after seeing Pain's ambition to conquer the world, Orochimaru secretly began to collect his own cards to deal with Akatsuki at a certain time in the future. Especially after being defeated by Dustless last time, Orochimaru's desire to deal with Akatsuki was even higher. He was not the kind of person who would submit to others. He joined Akatsuki just to use Akatsuki to achieve his own goals. Chapter 259. His dark hair cascaded down like a waterfall and casually draped over his shoulders. His pale face reflected a cold luster. There was no impurity on his face. If you ignore Orochimaru's gloomy aura, his long tongue that stuck out from time to time, and his eyes that flickered with viciousness, his facial features could be considered handsome, although he was a little feminine. Sasuke looked at Orochimaru suspiciously, and his eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Although he was very disdainful of this old guy, he had to admit that Orochimaru did have extraordinary strengths, and some of his abilities were really beyond his reach. At least, Orochimaru's life experience was not comparable to him. It may be related to those mysterious corpses. A light flashed in his mind, Sasuke secretly thought. Orochimaru has been searching the corpses of the major ninja villages all over the world for the past 2 years. He didn't know the specific use. However, according to Orochimaru, who takes one step at a time, no matter what he does, it's a step-by-step process. The corpses that he spent years collecting will never be useless. Looking at Orochimaru, Sasuke didn't intend to ask more. The former just closed his eyes and hummed softly. Obviously, he was brewing some kind of conspiracy. Boom boom boom, the deafening explosion suddenly resounded through the sky, and the whole earth suddenly trembled, splashing countless dust. Orochimaru, who was meditating, was also awakened by this violent explosion. Kabuto has started, squinting his eyes, endless killing intent and chilling coldness shot out from his eyes. Orochimaru's tone was strangely calm, and his eyes fell on Uchiha Sasuke. The meaning in his snake eyes was self-evident. If Sasuke wants to deal with the Akatsuki, this is undoubtedly the best opportunity. A cold light gathered on his handsome face. Without waiting for Orochimaru to speak, Sasuke's body turned into an afterimage, and in the blink of an eye, he drilled into the void like a ghost and disappeared completely. It seems that the plan needs to be speeded up. This kid's strength has improved so fast, but this is not a good sign. Seeing Sasuke leave, Orochimaru's brows immediately became gloomy, and his body was surrounded by a cold mist. His pale face was even paler, condensing fine frost. The surrounding air was quickly sucked out, as if it was suffocating. It was no different from a frozen corpse that had been preserved for many years. Sasuke's strength is getting stronger and stronger, which means that when devouring him in the future, it may be more difficult to deal with, and even unimaginable things are not impossible. The Uchiha clan is the kind of clan that creates miracles. If you look at them from an ordinary point of view, they will definitely end up very miserable. Devour him as soon as possible. A fierce light flashed in Orochimaru's eyes, and he made a decision in his heart. After this matter is resolved, he must snatch Uchiha's body, and he can't wait for him to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. When Sasuke opens his Manjikyu Sharingan, Orochimaru might not be his opponent. But before that, we should first deal with those 2 art masters. Orochimaru went straight into the dark tunnel on the right side. It was like a hell isolated from the rest of the world. It was filled with desolation, and Orochimaru soon disappeared. Hey, hey, hey. Are you kidding me, Sasori, Dage? You are so stupid. I know that these snakes are not good, and now I'm really tricked. In the tall canyon surrounded by mountains, Deidara and Sasori stood side by side, and Kabuto, who was not far in front of them, were wrapped in a huge transparent barrier. Shut up! Sasori scolded Deidara angrily, cursing this kid. Before, Deidara kept urging them to hurry up and catch the bijou. Now, seeing that the situation is not good, he suddenly began to shirk responsibility. Deidara just smiled and shrugged helplessly, indicating that he was just joking. Entertainment, the current tense atmosphere. But then again, that restless evil chakra just now, Deidara's face suddenly became gloomy. The violent negative chakra that suddenly appeared just now was definitely the bijou's, otherwise, he and Sasori would not have foolishly entered this valley. Yes, although I don't know how it happened, it is indeed the chakra of the bijou. Looking around, staring at the powerful barrier, Sasori also said in a hoarse voice. After many years of dealing with the bijou, they naturally knew the chakra of the bijou. Just now, they did feel the existence of the chakra of the bijou, but just when they entered the valley, the huge barrier fell from the sky. His fierce eyes fell on Kabuto, who was also trapped in the barrier. Sasori laughed and said sarcastically, "It seems that you have been abandoned by Orochimaru. Don't worry, I will not be so cruel to abandon you. Although your strength is a bit inferior, I will make you into a puppet to accompany me." Sasori roared at the end. A mere pawn dared to betray him. It was simply outrageous. Especially when this insignificant pawn actually dared to scheme against his master. Ah. Sasori-sama seems to have not figured out the situation. In the face of Sasori's threat, Kabuto just smiled indifferently. Although the three were covered by the powerful barrier, 4 purple flames array, at the same time, he did not worry too much. Instead, his bright eyes stared at Deidara and Sasori, and his eyes flashed from time to time like a hunter seeing his prey. "I have raised an ingrate, Sasori." While ridiculing Sasori, Deidara looked fierce. No matter who it was, betrayal was extremely hated. This was one of the human nature. "It seems that there is trouble, but that was indeed the chakra of the bijou. Where did Orochimaru, this bastard, get the bijou?" Clenching his fists slightly, Dusla secretly said in a deep voice. No wonder Sasori and Deidara would fall into the trap and follow Kabuto in the valley imprisoned by the 4 purple yang array, because the chakra that suddenly erupted just now was indeed a tailed beast. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.